Evelyn Adams woke up to the familiar sound of birds chirping outside her window, the sun filtering through the white curtains of her cozy bedroom. She stretched and smiled, breathing in the scent of fresh coffee drifting from the kitchen. It was another perfect morning in her idyllic suburban life. Her job as a graphic designer was fulfilling, her friends were loyal, and her relationship with her partner, James, was picture perfect. It was a life most people dreamed of, but lately, Evelyn had been noticing small, unsettling things. It started with a stranger at the grocery store, a woman she had never met before who greeted her by name, chatting as if they were old friends. Evelyn had laughed it off, assuming it was a case of mistaken identity, but then it happened again, with a man on the bus who seemed to know her entire daily routine. This morning it was something different. As she made her way to the kitchen, she noticed a photo on the wall that hadn't been there before. It was a picture of her and James at a beach she didn't recognize. She stared at it, her smile faltering. They had never been to that beach, she was sure of it. "James," she called out, her voice tinged with confusion. He stepped out of the kitchen, a cup of coffee in his hand, smiling warmly. "Good morning, Eve." She pointed at the photo. "When was this taken?" James glanced at the picture and chuckled. "Don't you remember? That was last summer, our weekend getaway." Evelyn's brow furrowed. "No, it wasn't. We went hiking in the mountains last summer, not to the beach." James' smile stiffened for just a second, a fleeting moment she might have missed if she hadn't been watching closely. "You must be mixing up memories," he said lightly, brushing it off. "We'd been to so many trips." Evelyn forced a smile, but her mind was racing. The photo felt wrong, like a piece of a puzzle that didn't quite fit. She decided not to press the issue, making a mental note to look at it later when James wasn't around. As she headed out the door for work, the feeling of unease lingered. On her way to the bus stop, she glanced up and saw a man standing on the corner, watching her. He quickly looked away when she made eye contact, pretending to check his phone. Evelyn's heart skipped a beat. Just a coincidence, she told herself, but the doubt had already taken root. All day at work, she couldn't focus. Her co-workers' conversation seemed stifled, almost scripted, as if they were reciting lines they had rehearsed. By the time she got home, she was on edge, every small detail seeming out of place. That night, as she lay in bed beside James, she stared up at the ceiling, feeling a creeping suspicion she couldn't shake. Her life had always felt perfect, too perfect, but now she was starting to wonder if it was all just an illusion. And if it was, she needed to find out who was behind it. Over the next few days, Evelyn became increasingly vigilant. She watched the people around her more closely, paying attention to their expressions and the way they interacted with her. The inconsistency she noticed grew more glaring. Her barista handed her a coffee before she even ordered it, saying, "The usual, right?" But Evelyn had never seen him before. She decided to test her suspicions. One evening, she told James she was going to meet a friend, but instead walked the opposite direction, taking a detour through the park. As she strolled along the tree-lined path, she felt the sensation of being watched, like eyes pressing on the back of her neck. Suddenly, she noticed a figure sitting on a bench, pretending to read a newspaper. It was the same man she had seen outside her apartment earlier that week. Her heart pounded as she walked past him, pretending not to notice. She glanced back a few seconds later, and he was gone. Evelyn quickened her pace, her mind racing. She needed answers. She decided to confront the only person she could trust, or at least the person she had thought she could trust. She arrived home and found James sitting on the couch, watching TV. "James," she said, her voice sharper than she intended. "Who are those people outside? The ones who keep following me?" James looked up, feigning confusion. "What are you talking about, Eve? No one's following you." "Don't lie to me," she snapped, her frustration boiling over. "I saw them. They know my name. They know everything about me. And the photo on the wall? It's fake, isn't it?" James' expression shifted. The mask of casual concern fell away, replaced by a calm, detached look she had never seen before. "Evelyn," he said slowly, "you need to calm down." Her blood ran cold. It wasn't the words, it was the way he said them, like he was reading from a script, like he knew exactly how she would react. "What's going on?" she whispered. "Is this some kind of joke?" James stood up, reaching out as if to comfort her, but there was no warmth in his eyes. "It's not what you think," he said. "Just trust me." Evelyn backed away, shaking her head. "No, I can't trust you. I don't even know who you are anymore." She grabbed her coat and ran out the door, ignoring his shouts for her to come back. She had no plan, no destination. All she knew was that she had to get away, to find a place where she could think clearly. As she sprinted down the street, she glanced up and saw something that made her stop in her tracks. A surveillance camera mounted on a lamppost, its lens trained directly on her. It rotated slowly, following her movements. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't paranoia. She was being watched, and whoever was watching her wasn't hiding anymore. Evelyn sprinted through the city streets, her mind racing faster than her legs could carry her. Her heart pounded, but it wasn't just the running. It was the realization that everything she knew might be a lie. The camera on the lamppost, the strangers who knew her name, the fabricated photo, none of it was a coincidence. She was part of something much bigger, something she couldn't yet understand. She ducked into a small alley, pressing her back against a cold brick wall. She needed time to think, to process. Her breath came in ragged gasps as she replayed the last few days in her mind. It all made sense now. The carefully timed encounters, the scripted conversations, the strange looks from people she didn't recognize but who seemed to know her intimately. This isn't real, she whispered to herself. My life isn't real. She pulled out her phone, intending to call her best friend Maya, the one person she was certain she could trust. But before she could dial, the screen flickered, the usual display replaced by a single, ominous message. You're not supposed to know. Evelyn dropped the phone, her hands trembling. It wasn't just her imagination. Someone was watching her, controlling every part of her life. She picked up the phone, hands shaking, and typed back a reply. Who are you? The response came almost immediately. Meet us at the old train station. Come alone. She knew it was a trap, but she had no choice. This was her only chance to find the truth. She slipped her phone into her pocket and took off toward the abandoned station on the edge of town, the place everyone avoided because it had been closed for years. As she approached, the eerie silence of the empty platform sent a shiver down her spine. The air was thick with dust, and the only light came from a flickering street lamp that cast long shadows. Evelyn's footsteps echoed as she walked deeper into the darkness, her heart pounding in her chest. Hello, she called out, her voice swallowed by the empty space. I'm here. What do you want from me? From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. It was a man in a suit with a calm, expressionless face. He looked like one of the countless strangers she passed on the street every day, but there was something about his eyes, sharp and calculating. Good evening, Evelyn, the man said, his tone polite but cold. We've been expecting you. Who are you? She demanded. What is this? Why are you watching me? The man gave a thin smile. I am just an observer, part of a larger organization that have been monitoring you for quite some time. Your life as you know it is a carefully constructed experiment. Evelyn felt like the ground had dropped out from beneath her. An experiment? What are you talking about? The man's smile didn't waver. You are part of a study, Evelyn. A controlled environment created to observe human behavior in a fabricated reality. Everything you've experienced, every interaction, has been meticulously designed. Her mind spun, trying to grasp the enormity of what he was saying. You've been controlling my life? All of it? Yes, he said simply. And now that you figured it out, you have a choice to make. Evelyn took a step back, her breath shallow and rapid. What kind of choice? She demanded. Her voice echoed off the empty walls of the train station, bouncing back at her like a taunt. The man's expression softened slightly, as if he pitied her. The choice we designed this entire experiment to lead up to, he said. We needed to see if you would uncover the truth on your own, and you have. But now you must decide. Do you want to stay here within the safety of this controlled reality, or step outside into the real world? Evelyn frowned, her confusion mounting. You're saying I can leave? Just like that? The man nodded. Yes, you can walk away right now, but I must warn you, the outside world is not what you remember. It's harsh, unpredictable. Here we can offer you safety, comfort, and stability. Out there you have none of that. Evelyn felt a surge of anger. You've been manipulating me, controlling every aspect of my life. Why would I want to stay? Because, the man said quietly, the world outside this experiment is even more controlled, just not by us. It's a place ruled by chaos, where we have no guarantees of safety or happiness. Here you know what to expect. Out there you don't. Evelyn's thoughts raced. Everything she had known was a lie, a carefully crafted illusion. But if she left, would she only be trading one kind of control for another? She looked back at the man, searching his face for any sign of deception. Why are you giving me a choice now? She asked. Why not just keep me here, in ignorance? The man's smile faded, because the experiment is about free will. We needed to know if you would uncover the truth, and if given the chance, whether you would stay or leave. It's the final stage of our study. Evelyn felt a hollow ache in her chest. Her entire life had been leading up to this moment, a test she didn't even know she was taking. And if I choose to leave? The man's eyes darkened. And you walk away, and we erase your existence from this reality. Everyone you know here, James, Maya, your co-workers, they'll forget you. It'll be as if you never existed. Evelyn swallowed hard. The thought of leaving everyone behind, everyone she loved, everything she had built, made her heart clench. Staying meant accepting a life under surveillance, a life she could never truly trust again. What kind of life would I have out there? She whispered. The man's expression softened, almost like a parent watching a child take their first steps. A real one, he said. Flawed, painful, but real. Evelyn closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. She knew her answer, but it didn't make the decision any easier. Evelyn took a deep breath and opened her eyes. The man in the suit watched her with a calm, expectant gaze. He already knew her decision. Maybe he had known it from the beginning. I choose to leave, she said, her voice steady, despite the turmoil inside her. I can't stay here knowing it's all a lie. The man nodded, almost expectantly. Very well, he said. Follow me. He led her through the train station to a heavy iron door she hadn't noticed before. It looked old and rusted, as if it hadn't been opened in years. He placed his hand on the handle and turned to face her one last time. You've made the brave choice, he said. But remember this. Once you leave, you can never come back. Whatever you find out there, you must face it on your own. Evelyn nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. I understand. He pushed open the door, revealing a blinding white light. Evelyn hesitated for a moment, looking back over her shoulder at the empty train station. She thought of James, Maya, and the life she was leaving behind. It hadn't been real, but the memory still felt real to her. With one final breath, she stepped to the doorway. The light enveloped her, and for a moment she felt weightless, as if she were floating in a void. Then the sensation changed. Cold wind rushed past her, and the ground beneath her feet felt rough and uneven. She opened her eyes and found herself standing in the middle of a vast, barren landscape. The sky above was gray, the air thick with a metallic taste. It was nothing like the vibrant, orderly world she had known. This place felt raw, untamed, and unpredictable. For the first time in her life, she was truly alone. Evelyn turned in a slow circle, taking in her new surroundings. There was no buildings, no people, only the endless horizon stretching out before her. She felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. Here, she could make her own choices, unobserved and uncontrolled. In the distance, she spotted a small figure walking toward her. As it got closer, she realized it was another person, dressed in simple, tattered clothes. The stranger looked up and met her gaze, giving her a small, knowing smile. Welcome to the real world, they said softly. Evelyn nodded, her lips curving into a smile despite the tears in her eyes. It's not what I expected, she admitted. It never is, the stranger replied, but it's yours now. What will you do with it? Evelyn looked out at the wild, untamed landscape, feeling the cold wind on her face. For the first time, she had no script, no plan, no safety net. It was terrifying, and it was everything she ever wanted. I'll live, she said, her voice filled with determination. Really live. As she took her first step into the unknown, the door behind her closed with a final, echoing thud. The experiment was over, and her real life had just begun.